Hello, bzz, or should I say bzz? I told you I had a surprise. This is my beehive costume with my bee socks. See the hive? And see my hat? I gotta get in there like that. This is my bee costume, or beehive costume. A former parent, Diana Kennedy, made this, and I've been using it ever since because I love bees. And right now I'm going to show you the waggle dance that the bees do in order to tell everybody where the honey is. You got to go like this, and then you go around like this, and you weave in and out. And then you go like this, and then you go this way, and you weave in and out. And the bees do the waggle dance to show the other worker bees where the flowers are and where they can collect the pollen and nectar, which is so important for their hives. So I just wanted to show you that. And now I'm going to get to all the specifics. Be back soon. Okay, I'm back. Nice to see you. See my t-shirt? Bees. Bees are powerful. I love bees, and you know, a lot of people think that bees are bad because they sting you. And actually, if you get stung, you're not getting stung by a bee. It's probably something else like a wasp or a hornet or something not very nice, like a bee, and not as helpful. Usually bees will only sting you if they feel threatened. Like if a bird's gonna eat them, it would sting the bird. If you are walking on the grass with bare feet and it's on a piece of clover and you step on it, it's going to sting you because it's afraid you're going to step on it. So there was one other way that they did that. I should have looked that up. Bees sting. And you know, sometimes if you have a bee by you, if you just blow real gently on it, it will go away because it'll be like, hey, you're not a flower. That's what I usually do. I just close my eyes and I go, I'm not a flower. I'm not a flower. And usually they'll go away. But it's best if you do get stung. Usually, again, it's not a bee. It is like a hornet or a wasp. Did you know that bees, they have 3 tiny simple eyes called an ocelli, and then they have 2 compound eyes with thousands of lenses like a fly? But I didn't even know that. I just learned that they have that other. They have 2 stomachs. They have a honey stomach for turning nectar into honey, and then they have a bee stomach for digesting nectar. So one kind of stores the honey when they go out to collect it, and they look, when you look at their wings, they have 4 wings. Two on each side. There are compound wings. See, one wing, and then there's another wing. Well, this doesn't really show it very well. And there's 6 legs. 6 legs. And there is one of their very back legs has a, what is it called? A pollen basket. It's kind of built into the legs. It's called a pollen basket. And the pollen basket allows the bees, let me see if I can show you a picture, allows the bees to carry pollen on their legs. When they go from flower to flower, they have, they collect, the pollen kind of gets on them. So the pollen is kind of the dusty stuff that's on a flower, and it collects on their fuzzy fur. And once they get a lot of pollen, they ball it up into a ball, and they put it on the backs of their legs like that in their pollen baskets. And bees, not only are bees great because they give us honey, that's probably the main reason you know bees are great, but bees are important for our world. They are important for our ecosystem because flowers need to pollinate other flowers to keep producing flowers. Do flowers have arms? No. Maybe in a cartoon. But flowers don't have arms, so they need something to help them to spread their pollen from flowers to flowers so they can produce more flowers. That includes fruit, like apples and cherries and peaches and fruits like that, pumpkins, things like that need bees to come in and get into their flowers, get pollen on themselves, and then they move on to the next flower and they transfer that pollen from flower to flower. So if we don't have bees, that's not going to get done. So no apples for you. No flowers for you. If we didn't have the bees. So I really am trying to get people to not be afraid of bees. So there are 3 kinds of bees. There is the queen bee, and the queen bee is the biggest bee. She's really big. You can probably see her. See how she's bigger than the other bees, the worker bees? She is longer, and there's only one queen bee per nest. She never leaves the nest. I guess she leaves the nest once when she's first queen, and she only lays eggs. She has a special area in the hive where she lays eggs. Oh, I forgot I was going to put my hat back on. She just lays eggs all day. She lays about 1,000 a day. There we go. Now I'm the queen. I am the queen bee. This is my queen bee crown. And this is my queen bee staff. Da, 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 da. Don't mess with me or my bees. So only one queen. She lives about 3 or 4 years. And when the worker bees notice that she's getting a little old, they start feeding something called royal jelly to a specific bee to make that one a queen bee. Only one queen bee. If, let's say, a bear comes along and knocks over somebody's hive, that would give you a new queen bee, because the queen's gonna fly, and when the bee flies and leaves the hive, everyone leaves. If you can't contain your queen, your whole hive is lost. So that's what a modern day hive looks like. They used to look like this. I think they were called a scalp. The traditional dome-shaped beehive is called a scalp. But now beekeepers use those. And I do have friends named Colin and Sadie. I'm hoping they're gonna show me their beehive, working place. What is it? Anyway, their beehives. I'm hoping they'll show us their whole garb, because you want to get dressed up. Anyway, on to the other kinds of bees. When a queen lays an egg, the eggs are as small as the tip of a brand new crayon. So very, very tiny. The next kind of bees are drones. Drones are all males. They don't do any work in the nest, and they only live long enough to help the queen bee make babies. So they don't live very long, and that's okay, because they don't help around anyway. And if you're not going to help, then move on. And then there are worker bees, and the worker bees are all females, and they have lots of jobs. Remember, the queen bee is a female, but she doesn't do any work but laying the eggs. The worker bee does. They clean out the honeycomb cells. They build and repair the honeycombs. They feed the queen and take care of the larvae, so they're nurse bees. They make honey from nectar. They guard the hive entrance. Those are the strongest bees. They guard the hive entrance, and whenever there is any kind of threat, they signal to the other bees with a buzzing sound to tell them, come help. They collect water to keep the hive cool, and they also use their wings. So a guard bee will stand at the guard, and it will flap its wings. Or I don't know if you call it flapping for a bee, but it will produce wind from its wings outside of the hive to keep it cool. And bees need to drink water. You might see them sometimes stopping after a rain on a leaf and sucking up the droplets of water, because they need water too. And they also suck up that water and they bring it back to the hive to put it in the hive, because it keeps it cool and keeps the larva from dying from heat. And they fly out to collect nectar and pollen. So queen bee lays eggs, never leaves the nest, only has babies, lives about 3 to 4 years. Drones, only males. don't do anything around the hive except help the queen to make babies. They usually die after they've helped the queen to make some babies. Worker bees, all girls. They are protecting the nest, cleaning the nest, feeding the babies and the queen, going out and getting nectar and water and pollen, making honey from nectar, and building and repairing the honeycombs. So the worker bees do a lot of work. So that is the bees. Now the process I was telling you about earlier about the pollen, forgot to mention this. When the bees get into the flower and the pollen gets on their fuzzy outsides, and they go to another flower and they pass the pollen on from each flower, that is called pollination, and it's very, very important for our produce, the foods that we eat, and the flowers that we love to bring into our homes and just see and smell. And the bees are mostly, they're not as attracted to bright colored flowers, they're more attracted to nectar-rich flowers. So they kind of have a smell, so they know which ones are the best. And the types of flowers they really like are daisies and marigolds and anything blue. For some reason they are attracted to blue flowers, which is great for me because I like to find blue flowers to put in my garden, like blue salvia or blue delphinium or lobelia, or there's just so many things that I like to find for the bees to come into my garden because that's important to me. They also have, so those things on the back of their legs are called pollen baskets. They have a honey stomach. Remember, they have two stomachs, a honey stomach and a regular stomach. And I just wanted to show you some up-close pictures of bees because you can kind of see the difference between them. They, bumblebees also are part of this. That's the honeycomb pattern. It's six-sided honeycombs, and they dip their proboscis just like a butterfly. They have a long tongue-like thing that they dip into the flowers, and it's like a straw, and that's how they collect the nectar, which goes into their honey stomach, and they, yeah, their honey tummy. And see that? Look at that. That's flower pollen dust, and it gets stuck on them, and then they will go to the next, they'll go to the next flower and they'll pollinate it. But isn't it cute? It looked like it got lost in a pollen storm. And then I showed you the how it rolls the pollen in balls on their legs. So if you ever see a bee flying around, sometimes you'll see that on the back of its legs. I've seen that. Okay, I gotta take this hat off because it's just causing too much trouble. When the bee is so heavy with nectar and pollen she can barely fly, she heads home to the hive, and thousands of other flies are arriving too. All the bees together make 400 pounds of honey. Person who collects bees or raises bees gets about 2 pounds of honey a day. But a bee only makes 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey in its lifetime. That's crazy, isn't it? But there are thousands of bees. There's usually 50,000. The whole colony works together for its queen. As long as she is safe and healthy, so is the hive. Worker bees bring her food and carry out her waste. They fan their wings to keep her cool. See how they're keeping her safe? Lots of bees. And this is one of the most important jobs, is taking care of the babies. Once the egg gets bigger, it turns into larva. And then it gets bigger and it hatches. And the first thing the bee does when it hatches is it cleans its room. It cleans the little comb that the little honeycomb it came out of. It cleans it. This says an eggshell melts away, and hello larva. The chubby baby looks nothing like a bee yet. For 3 days, the larva is fed a milky mush called royal jelly. Then it is switched to a honey pollen mixture called bee bread. See that? Bee bread. Finally, a honeybee chews open its cocoon and climbs out of its cozy shell. See it climbing out of there? And it's just like a butterfly. Its wings take a little while to get good, but see how she's cleaning her room before she leaves? And usually bees will go to the hives that people, man-made hives, but sometimes you'll find them in holes in trees and stuff like that if they're wild bees. And let's see, what else did I want to share with you? Yeah, I think that's it. A typical beehive can produce 400 pounds of honey. Honeybees are the only insects that produce food for humans. To make 1 pound of honey, the worker bees in the colony must visit 2 million flowers, and they can fly as much as 3 miles away from their hive. They fly over 50,000 miles and will take the lifetime work of approximately 300 bees. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of going places from. Oh, I know what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you this. This is kind of gross. So, a bee. Let me see. A bee gathers nectar from flowers. The nectar goes into a special honey stomach called a crop. Contents of the crop are sent up into a new bee's mouth. And then they break it down, and then they share it with another bee, and they share it with another bee, and they keep break it down. Who each break down the nectar in their crops until it becomes honey. Then the honey gets barfed into honeycomb shells. Seriously, they barf it up into the honeycomb shells and fanned by the wings of bees to evaporate the moisture. And then lastly, it's sealed with beeswax to keep it safe. Who knew? Who knew? So that's it for bees. Make sure to give bees a chance. Bees are important for our environment. That's why we're learning about them during Earth Week. And I just wanted to show you this. This is going to be a project that I'm going to be sending in your next take-home packet. It's called Gives Bees a Chance. I'm going to give you a piece of yellow paper with a hive already on it with a little door. You're going to get 3 little bees. They're 3D bees. See them? They're little stickers. And then I'm going to give you some supplies to make pretty flowers next to it. And I do little dots. Maybe mom or dad could do that. I do little dots to show that the bees are flying around because they fly all over the place. So give bees a chance. Don't forget to not be afraid of the bees. If a bee lands on you, just gently blow on it. Don't scream. Try not to step on bees when you're walking around in your lawn. And plant flowers if you can. Plant lots of flowers that produce a lot of nectar and pollen. Like I said, daisies, marigolds, anything blue, but any flowers. Bee balm. They love bee balm. Of course, it's called bee balm. So bee balm. So just plant flowers and make the bees happy. We have to keep them alive because if we don't have bees, there are a lot of things we won't have, like flowers and fruits. All right? So peace. Protect the bees. Until next time, bees. Seeing you soon.